Hey, good everyone.
Hey, Guru.
Welcome to minute 15 of our podcast Awake Minute by Minute. Today we have two very special guests. So this is our first episode where we've had 5 people. And the reason we've got 5 is because they're twins and it wouldn't feel right to disclude one and include the other. So Nik and Niva. Nik, say hello.
Hello, Jai Guru.
Niva.
Hello, Jai Guru.
Tell us about yourselves. Nik, why don't you tell us about, just introduce yourselves and then perhaps I'll get Niva to say something else.
Yeah, of course. So I am a university student and I'm also a graphic designer while I'm in university. So it's like a nice blend of work and study. That's what I do.
Which university are you in?
Oh, we're at Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, both of you. Niva, what are you doing with
Both
your life?
of us go to the same university. I'm a communications major and I want to focus on scriptwriting and film. So that's my concentration. And yeah, our university is super close to temples, so we're pretty much active that way.
Ah, that's good. I don't know which temple you could be referring to, but who's that
Fullerton.
picture in the background I see in between you two?
Oh yeah.
Oh, we have Guruji in the
Oh, it's
back.
Guruji, is it? Paramahansa Yogananda, the last mile perhaps. Tell us about how you came to know Guruji.
Honestly, it's a very weird story. Like my bedtime, we found him out when we were 8, when we were following another guru. He was just like, you guys should check him out because you guys are like, because Niva and I, we grew up with a very unorthodox parenting, and we never really felt Indian. So he's like, oh, he's this American Indian person. You should check him out. And Divine Romance and Manzatono Quest and all those books used to be my bedtime stories and also the audio tapes. So it's like, I don't know who this person is, but I vibe with him. So like, and then when we moved to America, my mom's like, well, it's a very Mayavi place, so we got to ground you guys spiritually. So she told us to attend Sunday school at Lake Shrine, and then we also attended the summer retreats as well. So that's why
We were at the Encinitas day camp, the girls' day camp, and the summer youth program over there.
yeah, that's when we're like, you know what, we
And
should get serious.
that was like a very big grounding point for us as devotees. And then after that, convocation, and we were at the Biltmore at his Mahasamadhi place, and I was sobbing when I was over there. And I'm like, you know what? This is my guru. And then when I was 18, I got Kriya.
Did you know about the story? Had you read the autobiography by that time, so you knew where he took his Mahasamadhi, or were you just walking past and you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening here?
I actually read the autobiography after I got Kriya. My first SRF book was The Divine Romance.
That's a bit strange. I don't think I've heard it that way around before.
I'm going to sound bad. I've never read the autobiography.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of people. I know a few devotees that haven't finished the autobiography of Yogi. How many times have you finished it, Mike?
I've stopped counting, but I finished it at least like 3 times. But recently, I've only been thinking of a chapter and then just reading that one. And I find myself reading the same chapters over and over, and others not so many. So it's a bit uneven.
How many times have you read it, Chris?
Once and a half. I think I'll give myself a half. I'd say once and a half. I listened to the audio. I had the audiobook for a while, and I was listening to that back and forth on a train.
Ben Kingsley version?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I could be. Yeah.
And Niva, how many times have you read it?
Once.
Just the once.
Cool. Yeah, it's not competition. Don't worry.
No, I'm gonna have to test you. You're gonna come back to the podcast in a year's time, and each of you should at least add 1 to that figure. So for Nik,
is my favorite chapter, by the way.
I was thinking about cauliflower
It's
robbery.
one of my favorite, most entertaining chapters in the book, hands down.
as a surprise, you two both picked the same chapter as your favorite chapter. Right, so let's get on to the minute in question. So the minute in question really focuses on the arrival of Yogananda into America for the first time, his arrival, his tentative footsteps into the new country or new land, I suppose. So what did you two make? Firstly, actually, Nik and Niva, what did you think of the film?
Honestly, I've watched Awake 2 times and I've sobbed both times. So I definitely have a very strong connection with Yogananda's life and story. So and then yeah, and even after I will cry. Like I watched it in the morning ish and I was like crying the whole day after. I was like I'm extremely I don't know, like I was really touched by his life and story, and I was just like, oh my god, like he went through all of this and he did it for God, and I'm just out here just like in university, and that I could do better. Like, come on, like he's an avatar, and he endured through all of that. So it's very it just hits me somewhere. So I really have a soft spot for that documentary.
Niva, tell us, what are your reflections on this scene in particular, just generally about Yogananda coming to a new place such as America, which he never would have been to?
I mean, as an immigrant to the United States, I
Ooh.
can definitely relate to him coming to America with all of those culture shocks and stuff, and especially the hot dog scene, right? When he's looking at those hot dog stands, he's like, they eat dogs. And I bet I would have the same reaction if I did not know what hot dogs really were, so to speak.
So when you came, you knew what hot dogs were.
I mean, yeah, because we had veggie dogs in India, so.
You were from Mumbai and stuff, right?
Yeah, they're from Mumbai, yeah.
Cool, yes. So you definitely had one. I remember when I first came to the UK as a migrant. I remember I didn't know anyone who ate meat, or I didn't even know meat was a thing. So I remember going to school and people having this thing that wasn't like vegetable, and I was like, what is that? I was just pretty young, and then they told me, and they're like, and I was like shocked that people were eating something that wasn't that was a living thing, and I remember going through that. So I too can sympathize with that scene of hot dogs and people are eating dogs.
Wow.
Crazy. But yeah, let's
Wow.
might as well discuss that scene. So what happens is Yogananda says, I noticed some hot dog signs. In imagination, I saw all kinds of dogs going through the meat chopper, and I thought, my Lord, why did you bring me to the land where people eat dogs? And then we see a stool, and there's lots of people eating hot dogs, and lots of scenes, and really old footage. So they must have actually had to work hard, the directors, to find footage of different people eating hot dogs in those old scenes. Did you know that dog meat was commonly used in Saxony, Silesia, Anhalt, and Bavaria during the 19th and 20th century?
Mm.
You
Knew
probably
that.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
The suspicion was that sausages containing dog meat was occasionally therefore justified. The term was first used in 1884. Trivia that no one cares about.
I mean, in China, they still eat dogs. Is that correct? Like to this day, I think they do, and there's a big problem over there. Maybe going into the weeds a little bit too much on this issue, but they, once a year have like a festival where they round up all the dogs and torture them in a way before they kill them, because it's meant to taste better. So yeah, shocking stuff. But yeah.
I find it strange that people are shocked about the dog meat eating dog scenario.
Me too.
Because
Because it is equally cruel to eat a cow, in my opinion.
if
Yeah.
not more so. Because I think cows have been known or proven to have like really complex emotional states, right? I remember my wife was telling me that the cows in our village, when someone would pass away in the family, they would actually cry even without having seen that they've passed away or whatever. So that's really quite powerful. But the first scene in the shot is a market stall, a potato stall. So someone looking strangely at the camera. Chris, you've got lots of relationships with potatoes, I'm sure. Tell us about your potato love.
Picking the Irish guy, what is it? Potatoes is a stable source of food for many peoples around the world, not just the Irish.
I don't know what you're referring to. I just know you like potatoes. I didn't know anything. I wasn't talking about anything in particular.
Love a potato, yeah. I mean, at that time, I suppose, it would have been quite impoverished, and we shouldn't really take for granted all the wealth of access to foods that we have today, right? So I guess this was probably how people went about their shopping. They went to these markets, which is what's depicted in the minute, more like a market stall in the street and horses going by and things like this. So it was probably more common to shop that way back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm sure that would have been a great sense of community and everything, and probably would have made Guruji feel more at home, if anything. So yeah, that's my comments. Nothing to do with others.
The next shot is so there's a picture of Guruji, and I find this one a little strange. So it's like a mute video of Yogananda, and he's talking to the camera, and he's like speaking to different parts of the audience. It's like mimicking that he's in an auditorium. And I'm guessing from my research that it would have been because they did lots of adverts for a lot of his talks in both in Boston and when he went to New York for a couple of years later. He did a big tour there. So I'm guessing they did lots of advertising for his talks, and that was part of one of them. Nik, what did you think of that shot? Oh, have you seen that shot? Had you seen that shot before of him speaking? I think it's in some of the other SRF videos, if I recall, as well.
Yeah, the deputies keep sending me like these videos of him, so I'm just like, yeah, I think I've seen it. And I know for me, I'm definitely, I'm a graphic designer. I'm also into marketing, digital marketing. So I'm just like, well, I feel like based on how Guruji carried himself, he did not carry himself as a yogi. No, internally he's always going to be a yogi, but I feel like he carried himself like almost a businessman would, who's like selling something, because I feel like it's a given, like teaching is a give and take, like you take someone's attention for knowledge, and I feel like that's what he was doing. And he wanted to, because I mean, if he showed up like any normal yogi would, he would definitely be dismissed. And he came to America for a mission to help blend East and West philosophies, right? So I feel like he had to strategically position himself, and which makes him very relatable and very timeless in his demeanor, that even we can still relate to him right now. So I kind of really liked that.
So Niva, if you recall in that shot, he's wearing a turban and a white collar, which I might as well show it to you. So it looks a bit like that. Yeah. What do you think of that shot? Because a lot of people have different favorites pictures of Guruji. What do you think of that particular shot? It's kind of a blend, as Niva, as Nik just said, of East and West in terms of the dress.
I really love that shot because of the fact that, in like the 1920s, usually people would wear like coats and these really like dapper fedoras and stuff, and the cane, and and the thing about Guruji I love is that he has no shame in telling the world that he's from India. And those were really pressing times for a lot of colored folk. And the fact that he could just walk with such confidence on the streets in the 1920s, that even right now, as an immigrant, sometimes I don't feel that proud. I'm like, oh my God. But then when I look at Guruji, I'm like, no, you know what? I love my country, and I'm so glad I'm here, and I have both Guruji's countries in my nationality, so to speak. So I'm really happy that way.
Yeah, very nice. I remember just in reference to your point about even you a bit tentative sometimes, but I remember when I was touring the States a few years ago, I went to this central state there. Don't know how many brown faces I'd ever seen, but we were at this diner. We were in a diner, and the waitress was speaking to me, and she's like, "Oh, where are y'all from?" And I was like, "Oh, we're from the UK." And then she's like, "Oh wow, what language do they speak there?" And I was like, "English." The language we're speaking right now. The language we're speaking right now. And I couldn't believe that someone. Yeah, let's not get into that. But yeah, it was really funny.
From England, yeah.
In fact, yeah, I didn't say UK. I said England, and she still asked what language do they speak. Right. So the next scene, Nik, you will very much relate to, is Felix the Cat. It's a cartoon of Felix the Cat, and it's like they kind of linked it into the hot dog scene, and it's like Felix the Cat eating hot dogs or finding hot dogs or whatever. Had you seen that before since, or did you know about that before?
I think it's very blurry. The visual's pretty blurry, but if you tell me that a cat's eating a hot dog, I feel like it's mainly I feel like it's I'm an artist, right? So I always like to find a deeper meaning in what's just shown. So I'm just like, if they have a cat trying to eat hot dogs, I feel like, when we look at cartoon characters, it's like, yes, they're animals, but they have this very personified essence to them. So like you want to relate to them. So I feel like it's more about showing the normalcy of consuming such product, or like the affinity of it as well, even. So that's something, we could probably
Do you watch? I take it you hadn't seen. I hadn't heard of Felix the Cat. Had either of you guys before this? Felix the Cat is an how you say that word? Black cat with white eyes, a black body, and a giant grin. He's one of the most recognized cartoon characters in the film history, apparently. Felix was the first animated character to attain a level of popularity sufficient to draw movie audiences. So, Niva, would you watch Felix the Cat versus Tom and Jerry?
I kind of grew up watching Tom and Jerry. It's the classics. But I would give it a shot just because it's in a week. I would give it a shot.
No, and I also feel like, since I took a college level film class in high school, and they told us about, why people made such films about like, like I feel like when Nickelodeons first showed up, and I learned about the history of that. And then when animation started showing up, they wanted to know how to engage viewers. So the personification of animals like seemed catchy, and they just went along with that. So I feel like it just shows how you could just relate to the world around you.
Interestingly, they've got a comic. In India, YSS have got a comic, haven't they? Yogananda comic, which tells various scenes of the autobiography, and we don't have that in here. I don't know if you guys do. You have that over there in any of your US temples?
Oh, the Amajitra Kathas, the one that
Yeah,
has.
that's right.
Oh yeah, we grew up reading those back in India. We have like the whole sets in our old home in India, actually. So.
But there's not you haven't seen it in the US though, presumably in English.
I've seen it in like a bunch of Indian stores. Like, you specifically go to an Indian store in California, you will find those books and stuff. So I've come across them before, here especially.
Yeah, they're really cool. I think they'll be quite a useful tool, especially for Sunday school. I think for kids.
Oh,
yeah. I still like reading comics, so I would like to I would continue to read it if it was available.
They have books on the avatars as well. They have books on Jesus and Krishna and the series, so we're very good for Sunday school.
You're going to send us a link for that, I think. Mike, had you heard of Felix the Cat?
Have not. I noticed like the style of drawing reminds me of the super early Mickey Mouse, and the quality of the animation was almost like thumb cinema, right? It's like 1 frame per second or something.
Yes. I think it was a nice way for them to introduce like various trends that were happening at the time when Guruji entered that Boston area. So the next scene is Brahmachari Martin, who apparently is a regular at Lake Shrine. Has anyone met or heard a lecture by Brahmachari Martin?
Yes, he actually was a monastic at my silent retreat during my 19th birthday at Lake Shrine, and he gave us a service about Thanksgiving that year, 2019, and it was wonderful. And he's very much tight with the young adults as well. I remember the evening at the lake, he was one of the monastics over there, and he was like, yeah, I play guitar, I like classic rock, and I love Guruji. And I'm like, yes, awesome.
That's basically Niva's like ideal monk. What's he like? So what's he? Did you get to speak to him?
Yeah, I did. we were talking about guitar and the cosmic chants and how he also had his own arrangements on the guitar and stuff. So that was pretty swell.
Niva and I have started this WhatsApp group and Instagram group. Go on, Niva, you might as well plug it.
So it's actually an informal young adult guitar ensemble where us SRF devotees who play guitar, we come together and we make cosmic chants together. It's pretty amazing.
What's the Twitter handle? What's the Instagram handle? Cosmic.
Oh, that's my
guitarist.
Instagram
Oh, okay,
handle.
okay. We won't say that then. I thought it was our group's one.
Oh no, it's just my personal one from like my.
I was proud to be part of that band. I was the first band I was in. But now you're telling me that I'm not actually part of that.
Oh no. I can make a separate Instagram. Don't worry. I'll make another one.
Mike, have you met Brahmachari Martin?
No, I don't think so.
No, this is the first time I heard him. This is his debut into the film. I don't know if he's in another part of the film, but what he says is, when Yogananda came to the United States, it was after World War One. The world was a very different place. And then we see a shot of some soldiers marching during a parade with a giant USA flag, and we see steam trains and Wright brothers plane kind of hovering around and doing a loop to loop. So yeah, tell us, Mike, what was the world like after World War One? What do you think, especially in USA?
So one fun fact that I heard and I'm usually full of fun facts. So, the US before World War One, US was the biggest debitor in the world. So they had more foreign debt than any other country. And then in World War One, the US was involved, but not very heavily. Mostly they loaned money to France and Britain to fight World War One. And then when they won it, basically the US was the biggest creditor in the world. So suddenly they had loaned so much money to the UK and France, and they were massively in debt at the US now. So the power had very much shifted in World War One already from Europe to America. Not all the way, like it happened again in World War Two, but in World War One, this already happened halfway. It was also a time of mass migration to America, and then also
from which countries, though, Mike?
Well, I guess it happened from both sides, I guess. But I guess that at this time it was still mainly from Europe. So it was from the war-torn regions of Europe. People came, and back then immigration policy was quite lax. So the people just came in, and fresh off the boat, people took any job they could find. And New York was like the symbol of hope for the world still.
A lot of Irish. A lot of my cousins.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention the Irish, but because I didn't know if you wanted that, but yeah, a lot of Irish.
Chris, tell us about your Irish cousins in the USA.
Irish cousins. Do you know, I actually have Irish cousins in Houston, the Houston, Texas people. That's actually a derivative of long lost Houston line or something.
The Houston Hustons.
Yeah, Houston, the Hustons and Houston. Sorry, guys. My surname spelled slightly different, isn't it? So, in case you missed that joke.
Are you saying you're not suggesting that your surname derives from the Houston Hustons, does it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, there's
does.
So there's Houstons and the Houstons and Hustons, but this is pronounced Houston, my surname, here in Northern Ireland as well. So it was just a disagreement as to how to spell the surname, and then I think the history of the Houstons. There's some of them went to the US and they were kind of big into the slave trade, so it's kind of a darker kind of past than what I would like to be kind of too happy to talk about. But yeah, that's all there. Interestingly, but I think there's 60 million. There's some trivia. There's 60 million people in the United States that would say that they're descendants from Ireland, which is hilarious.
I thought it was even more than that. Yeah,
it could be more. It could be more. Yeah, maybe that's an old trivia, but there's only like a few million people in Ireland. So yeah, it's our cousin.
I was looking at accents actually. I don't know why at one point, and I was looking at how the American accent has kind of evolved in different parts of the States, and it's got heavily influences from the Irish accent, hasn't it? Well, in my amateur analysis.
Massive, yeah, on the R's and O's, and same with Australia, with its Scottish, English, Irish prisoners and stuff out there. So they came up with the Australian accent after a few beers. Yeah.
I wonder which country has got the Indian accent influence. Don't know. Is it called phonology? Is it called? I don't know. I think there's something along those lines.
Phonology, I think. Yeah.
What phonology? Okay.
Probably parts of London, I guess, in its own municipality.
I feel like Trinidad definitely has. And
Oh, yeah.
Trinidad and Suriname definitely might have traces of an Indian accent.
Sri Lanka, yes.
And a lot of the Far East, I suppose, because lots of the South Indian empires went across, didn't they, to Indonesia and those kind of places. So no doubt those languages. Actually, a lot of those languages use the same script, I think, as Brahmi or the Sanskrit script that they don't know. Anyway, where that conversation. I don't know how.
It'll be interesting to see where we are in 1,000 years' time. It's all going to amalgamate into one.
Most likely, my money's on English.
Chinese.
God help us. God help us.
Mandarin. God help us.
Why do you think we're doing this podcast in English, Mike? Otherwise, we would have picked ancient Greek if that was still a thing.
Yeah, but 1,000 years is a long time. I mean.
Right. So the next card I've got. So let's talk about quickly the influence of, I suppose, Eastern philosophy and Eastern spirituality at the time of Yogananda's arrival. So we obviously know that Vivekananda was preceded him by a couple of decades, and there was Swami Ram Tirtha, wasn't there? And there was probably a couple of other influential people that also came. So Yogananda certainly wasn't the first to have arrived. Vivekananda would have definitely made a very big mark. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Go on, Nick. Go on, Nick.
I got so excited because I think one of Guruji's devotees met Vivekananda, and then Vivekananda said, oh, he asked if he could have Vivekananda as his guru, and he said, oh, I'm not your guru. Your guru's gonna give you like a little silver cup, amulet, yeah. And then when Yogananda came, and then he actually, I mean, this is what I remember because this was read to me, so I feel like this is like secondhand knowledge. So I'm just gonna say what I remember, and then
isn't all knowledge secondhand?
Honestly, if you think about it, that's very
other than intuitive knowledge, which is big. Anyway, carry on.
So then when Yogananda came back from India, I think one of his new devotees, the guy who met Vivekananda, he got Guruji gave him the silver amulet, and he started sobbing because I feel like all the gurus that show up in America have this spiritual kind of link that like, I know you're going to show up here like anytime soon now. So I feel like they're all cosmically connected because they know that they're vibrating in such a high consciousness that they know that they have a specific role to play, and they have predecessors and people coming after them. So
it's interesting you should quote that story from the autobiography of Yogi, having not read it. Somehow these messages, this knowledge is coming to you and through some other medium.
Definitely my mom, she reads them. She's like, guys, like we're not doing anything. Let's read like an excerpt. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Right. Niva, what do you think? The entry of that, I suppose, the first outlook into the USA during that time.
Well, I just wanted to say that the impact that Guruji had since the day he came to the United States. I mean, yoga is such a popular word now in America, especially like the recent times. And usually whenever people talk about yoga, they think about, oh, the asanas, the postures, hatha yoga and stuff. But the beauty of what I've realized that Guruji's yoga it's Raja Yoga, and it's one of my personal favorites to follow because it's the royal highway to the internet. And I'm just really grateful that he came here and stuff, because I feel like, like that material and spiritual trade-off that India and the United States have, right? Like, how India is like spiritual and America is so material. And as an Indian, I'm noticing a big trade-off happening as we speak, with like India being more materialized now and the United States taking a very spiritual turn, especially with trends and stuff as we speak. So Guruji, it's all on you.
Chris?
Well, I guess I would zoom out whenever I think of it. I would like zoom out and see, we talked about it before about the yugas and the time, and I love talking about these things and how it was actually 1899 was the end of the mutation period of the previous yugas, or in the Dwapara Yuga from then forward. So he really came at that time to influence the shift, to really be that vessel of bringing the light, essentially, maybe if I could use that word, to in darkened time. And like you said, material sense, it was very material and is very material. And whenever I look at this minute, I see, what type of place it was. TV was coming in the 1920s, 1927, I think it was, in San Francisco. And that it was first shown, and all the entertainment and the distractions and everything to take you away from God was there. If it was anywhere in the world, it was in the US. So yeah, he kind of came in at that time, really did help kind of shift the balance, and it was a long-term plan, really.
Do you think, talking about materialism in America, Mike, do you think USA would have at that point been the wealthiest or the most powerful country in the world at that time?
I asked myself that question many times, and I don't think so yet. They were on the way to it. So if you would have said, okay, what is going to happen in 100 years or something, if current trends continue, maybe. But back then, from the viewpoint back then, I thought, how did he know to go to LA and not go to London, which was obviously the center of the world at this point, right? So if you want to establish this in the world. But Guruji never thought of that. He knew the center of Western civilization and the center of power, the center of gravity, economic center will be in the United States. And the part of the United States that will be most receptive for spirituality will be that West Coast. So he didn't waste, I don't think he wasted any time. So he went to Boston for a few years, and then he went straight to LA, bought the estate, which is now Mother Center, and established SRF there. So this was all intuitive knowledge that at the time I don't think was really easy to foresee.
That's a really, really interesting point, because you're right. I suppose especially with India, UK's influence on India at the time, the schooling that he would have received, etc., they would have definitely portrayed England and UK to be the powerhouse of the world, and especially all his, the respected teachers and all those other, people that became, what they called lords and all that kind of stuff, and knighthoods and all. So they would have received them, and the culture would have been that, the Queen bestows power and all that kind of silly stuff. So there's quite a really interesting point you just made.
Yeah, and you gotta think LA was like 10,000 people. It's a tiny place back then. There was nothing there.
It's quite the opposite now. It's like zero.
Yeah.
Whoa. Was the Hollywood sign not there at the time then, do you think?
I feel like Hollywood signs came up, I think, way after, right?
Yeah. It was just a few years before the Kardashians came. Yeah.
No, but to bring up the point that you guys talked about, I feel like, let's say in an alternate universe, if Guruji were to go to England, I feel like it would have been very contradicting to his teachings, because he talks about that God is the one who you can connect, tap into, and receive power from. So if he goes to a place where the Queen's giving you power, she
yeah.
Where
but didn't Guruji go to the UK and have a sermon over there, if I remember enough?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
He did, but I feel like, whenever people are spreading messages, I feel like wherever they go, it's very crucial because that place kind of reflects what they're trying to share, and if they're open and receptive to it. I feel like if he were to be in England, I don't think they would have been very receptive because of the power and the people, how they're portrayed over there. So I feel like intuition definitely played a massive role for him to.
I'm with Mike on this one.
Yeah, that's definitely true actually, because the culture in the UK was definitely different as well, wasn't it? And the power of religion, and the influence of that brand of Christianity that was prevalent in the UK was very different as it was in the US. The US was much more dynamic in its thinking. We're actually going to interview Professor Clooney from Harvard about this very topic in a few weeks, and perhaps we should bring that up. But I always, if Yogananda did come to the UK, no doubt UK would now be the powerhouse of the world and not USA.
Yes, and the
But
Queen
now
would be doing Kriya Yoga. Yes.
she'd live longer. I guess.
She's already pretty old, but she's in her 90s and doing pretty well. So with Kriya, she'd look like she's in her 50s, perhaps.
In my mind, if you are king and you do enough Kriya, you step down and say there's no human above another.
I'd agree, yeah.
That's true.
Maybe Harry's doing his.
Yeah, that's true. Harry, you're adopting Harry, aren't you, Nik and Niva?
Yeah, he's here in California as we speak.
Right. So the next scene. Let's talk about what Phil Goldberg says. So he says, firstly, Phil Goldberg, he's speaking on this terraced house, and with a window in the background, and there's a very carefully placed Nataraja form on the table next to him, and he tells us it was very good product placement. The directors put various props in different places to give different feels of things. So I don't know if you noticed that in the background as he was speaking. But he said, it was a very powerful time. There was this upsurge of freedom of sexuality, freedom of expression. And then we see lots of shots actually. Firstly, we see images of some ladies dancing in their swimwear, which I suppose freedom of sexuality that kind of alludes to. Then we see the great Zakhanis, I think the human cannonball that was famous in the 1920s, who invented a cannon that used compressed air to launch himself over various things. And there's ladies using a wireless telephone, which is, I think, pretty new at the time. So it's a good blend of trying to establish where not just the culture of the people were, but actually scientifically where they were as well. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, it's really just as I said earlier on, actually, maybe I'd jump the gun on that one, but at the time they would have been really excelling in their material wealth, I suppose, and the advancements and everything, that the technological advancements that brought. So the industrial age was well underway, and so it would have been a really exciting time. Like, it's one of the greatest revolutions, in our human history. So to be kind of caught up in that, I suppose, and to be there as an anchor to help anchor people spiritually would have been quite a lot, I think, to not deal with, but to really take on, I suppose, to say it mildly, for Guruji to go over there from India, which would have been relatively a lot more back in the 19th century still, I suppose. But it would have been amazing to see for him, and to go from Boston, spend a few years there, and then go to LA. I'm sure he would have been caught up in the whirlwind at the time, and all the fun that was going on. So,
Mike, did you ever try the human cannonball?
I didn't know this was an option. I would love to do that. It sounds really fun.
You're the most traveled amongst all of us, so I would have thought if anyone had seen it and had the opportunity, that would have certainly been you.
Yeah. Not yet. Maybe in the future. Yeah. Now
Not
that I
yet.
have this wish in my mind, it might manifest.
Seeds
We
planted.
need the pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, but going back to the scene, so they did
Mm.
use some clever use of scenes like the wireless telephone. Obviously, Bell was he was
Mhm.
American, wasn't he? And that was the time where he did that, filed that patent, and first established that first call from, was it New York to Chicago or something like that. So it was a apt use of scenes to portray a culture. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah.
I think it's great because I'm gonna keep alluding back to what Guruji keeps saying, because I feel like, you know, it's about the life of Yogananda, and I feel like the scenes are very, very very much relatable to what Guruji says, because whatever he says in his books about like restlessness, he talks about the sense telephones, right? So he gives allusions to the current technology of that day, you know, which makes people which made people want to give him their attention, because like, okay, he's talking about something that we already know, and so he's taking them from the known to the unknown, which, you know, puts people in a good comfort zone. And then, you know, if he talked about, you know, like even his talks, he calls it the science of religion. He didn't call it Hinduism. Like they'll be like, what? If you say science, you know, we're talking about quantum physics, so they'll be like, okay, cool, there's some physical evidence to what he's talking about. So the little scenes that have been shared, they definitely reflect on what he has been teaching. So it's a good like reflection and relatability of sorts.
Mhm.
To jump in there, I think he really did, to your point, engage in the technology of the time, right? So I think it was the mailing system that he really took advantage of, wasn't it? I think might have been mentioned in a previous minute or maybe a future minute in the
Well,
document.
it will be in the future, yeah.
I think in future minutes. So maybe just tie into that and steal some content from the future minute. He really spread the word of you know, the SRF teachings through the modern technology at the time, which was modern day planes and getting letters out and mass production of that, which is to his credit really for taking the initiative and really for doing that to really establish what would have been the future of SRF teachings, which, you know, we've all probably got our lessons in our drawers somewhere that are cherished to this day.
Niva, are you using old lessons or are you using electronic lessons?
I have a mix. I have like the ancient lessons. I have the new packet ones, and then I have the ones on my phone. So I like all three.
Ancient ones. They're just the hand typewriter
Yeah,
feel.
I call them the ye old lessons.
But you know, one of my friends showed me ones that were from YSS, and they're different. They're really different. They've got lots of like Sanskrit in them, and they've got various other things that aren't in the
Yeah, so I've heard.
SRF
Yeah.
ones. I don't know if you've ever seen the YSS ones, have you?
I think once, because we have a couple of pals over in India who attend YSS, and I'm like, oh my god, they have Sanskrit. That is so cool. I want Sanskrit in my lessons. Why can't I get that?
I suppose that's probably dividing as well, because then the South Indians will be like, well, why isn't it in one?
True.
Yeah. The next scene. So now the next scene is really, really delving into some scientific stuff, and that's reflected in the scenes. So the last scene, Phil Goldberg talks about. He says, boundaries of known reality were being shattered and penetrated. You had the Einsteinian Revolution sort of flowering into quantum physics, and it became clear that the world was not what it appeared to be. Chris.
Don't ask me to explain that stuff.
Mike, you tell us about the Einsteinian Revolution.
I was going to give it a go. No, kidding.
Sure.
Mike, go ahead.
See, I'll try. Like basically the thing that there's also part in the movie. You see this formula E is mc square, right? And that's basically to do with the theory of relativity. And we all kind of know what it means, but explaining it is not super easy. I can try. It's basically like the speed of light is constant.
What is the speed of light, Nick?
Oh yeah,
I'm an art major.
Niva?
Oh my god, I should Craft Tyson, but
Well, I just all I know it's like it's
something to the power of something.
that's
And what are
right.
what are the units then?
It's definitely billionth or no, I was watching this. There were these people trying to capture the speed of light. And speed of light was, I think, something to the 15 billionth of a second or something, or even faster, but it's all I can say it's really fast.
3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second.
You looked that up?
Okay.
No, I know
Yeah.
it because I did engineering.
Oh, see, there you go.
Nice.
Go on, Mike. Finish the Einsteinian
Yeah.
Revolution theory.
186,000 miles per second
Hmm.
for the American listeners. Yes. And it basically means that mass is everything that's mass is made of energy. That is one, and the other thing is mass and space is all relative, and so you add more speed, then the mass decreases, or vice versa, and that is pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. And I think back in the day, we, like Chris said earlier, we were coming out of the materialistic age, and now we're figuring out that all the matter that we see is essentially energy, and none of it is actually as real as we think it is.
Yeah,
Go on, Chris, finish.
Yeah, I think the Newtonian to the Einsteinian change really is, Mike was saying there, it went from like what you can see at the cellular level essentially to stuff that you can't see. And Einstein really, with his theories of general relativity, was able to predict things, and that the Newtonian ways of thinking, let's say, the stuff that you can touch and feel and things like this, it couldn't really. So it was a whole new breakthrough. And really is helping us understand the nature of the reality around us. And I think Einsteinian, we maybe talked about this in a previous episode, Priyank, we were saying how if you follow a certain intellect, you in terms of yoga have a title or some to help me out here, because you're a lot more versed in these things than I am, Priyank. Essentially, Einstein was quite a evolved person who followed the intellect rather than maybe yoga itself, meditation.
And
Yeah, Jnana Yoga, yes.
Jnana Yoga, thank you. So
Yes.
one thing I also liked about this was that oftentimes, especially in the West, we talked about this in a previous episode, that there's always this thing, religion versus science. And Guruji doesn't take Einstein and says, oh yeah, that can't be right. That's not how it says in the Bible or whatever. But he takes this, embraces it, and says, yeah, see, this is all not real. This is all just Maya. And I love that about it.
mm-hmm.
Nick?
Honestly, I feel like whenever it comes to the teachings of Einstein and basically like connecting it, if you look at science, when the church was connected to literally everything, almost every scientific discovery was considered an act of the divine. If you look at the cells were named after the monk cells, right? When the guy who discovered plant cells, he was a monk.
Mendel, yeah, right?
Mendel,
Mendel.
Thank you, Mendel. So if you look at all the scientific discoveries made, it's you will find one scientist who just keep alluding to the divine, because I feel like there's since centuries ago, it's already been confirmed that there is a higher power, but it's just that it depends on the level of a person's consciousness to perceive it. Whereas now, when it comes to whereas now it's been easier to bring the unknown to the known based on more discoveries being made. So I don't think I mean, it is something fascinating for lay people, but when it comes to people who've been indoctrinated into spirituality, it's actually nothing new. If you just take a step back and look at the history of science and discoveries. So
Niva,
Mhm.
Niva's the most into science actually out of all of us, because she loves anything to do with space and stars and astronomy, don't you?
Oh yeah, I watched Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos season 1. I think it was all done now. But I think one of my favorite things about science and spirituality is that both make you curious about stuff and reality and stuff. And the beautiful thing about Guruji is that how he blends it together. Like a bunch of my pals who I attend church with here at Fullerton Temple, they are scientists, they were atheists, and Guruji got them into believing in God because he used the scientific terms that they were used to. And then he slowly got them into, okay, how about God is energy, right? If God is peace, God is love, and these basic terms we know of. And then they got into like the techniques and then later on Kriya and stuff. So I feel the good thing about Guruji and his viewpoints is that Guruji himself is a scientist, and he does say the fact that, go in the laboratory of meditation and test it for yourself. And I think that sentence is very scientist friendly, because in the world of science, you want to test things before you say that, oh my God, this is a true thing and it's said and done and stuff, So even like you said in the lessons, right? Like, don't take my word for it. You practice Kriya, you practice your regular meditation and see it for yourself. You can get God in your own laboratory, so to speak.
I like that because it decentralizes love, I suppose, in that sense. And we've had centuries of centralized power and control over what essentially is, within us all. It's a very decentralized thing, and he definitely doesn't want to take any credit for it, does he, Yogananda? He says, look, this is all within us. We are all children of God, and you must wake up as a saint of, as God's child. You must wake up. But my just a little throwaway comment here. I love the idea of science and religion kind of coming full circle, come together, because religion has got very bad rap, for probably right reasons over the years, but it essentially at its core is love, and it is knowing truth and reality. And science hopefully is coming full circle as it begins to become more subtle in its detection of reality, to confirm some of the truths that maybe the ancient sages have talked about for many, many years. So it's really exciting, like where we're going with study of consciousness. I think Phil Goldberg we had on fairly recently, he's interested in that as well, and the more subtle realm realities that we all experience every single day, but we can't quite put it into a test tube and test. So it's really exciting times. So yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Mike, before we move on. So we talked about knowledge, and I think Phil said boundaries of known reality were being shattered and penetrated, and we alluded also previously to second-hand knowledge. Einstein was obviously one of the forerunners in creating knowledge, I suppose, as it were, creating his own theories of various things, and E equals MC squared is a classic one. But let's talk about intuitive knowledge then. How, that kind of plays into something that Chris was saying about the subtle aspects of it. So do you have any experience of something that might be defined as intuitive knowledge? It's a tough question, isn't it?
You're asking me?
You look like the smartest one out of all of us.
Yeah, but I mean, being smart and having intuitive knowledge is not always the same. It's not always.
Maybe that's the real smart thing.
Yeah, I feel like intuition is something that is like I think that's one of my life goals, to develop an intuition that I feel safe with. Because basically when I grew up in an SRF family, but that part of trusting your intuition more than other factors, like what someone of authority tells you, what a good friend tells you, this is quite difficult. And this is still something where I'm not really sure sometimes, there are those moments where you don't know what to do. You get a first feeling, and then you go like, okay, how am I going to make this decision? And then you meditate and hope that Guruji will kind of give you a feeling what the right thing is. And sometimes it's totally worth it. Like when you look at Guruji, he oftentimes didn't make his decisions quickly. He oftentimes sat all night, asked Divine Mother, asked Babaji. We talked about it in previous episodes about his decision to go to America, right? He didn't take any of this lightly, took this very seriously. And sometimes I have those moments where I feel like, I feel good about this. I feel like I should be doing this. I'm pretty sure this is an intuitive decision I'm making now. And then usually afterwards it is correct. And sometimes not, but
sometimes you just know, though, isn't it? You can't explain why you
yeah.
know something. You just
Yes,
know it.
yes,
Niva, tell us
yes,
about the
yes.
last time where you knew such a thing, Niva.
Oh my God. Okay.
Talk about putting someone on the spot.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I like
no,
asking.
no, no. I said that because I actually experienced that at a very young age when I was like 8 or 9. And I had an intuition that I wasn't gonna be in India for a very long time. And I kept on getting like these little things inside of me that, you know what, you check out America. I think America is a good place. And you know what, you might just be there, and then but with intuition and stuff, we went to the States for the very first time in 2011 in New York, and we loved it. And on our flight back, my intuition was that the next time we come to America is the day we move here. Voila, 2014 May 17th was the day we moved to California, and it was all intuition, and it was just magical, in my honest opinion.
You were going to interrupt, Niva.
No, I was excited. Because I remember that day. It was our last day in we were sitting waiting for a flight in Newark airport, and I was like, Niva, the next time we come here, like we're gonna be like living here. And she's like, yeah, let's not tell mom yet though. But then we told her mom, she's like, yeah, we'll see. And then in like 2013, she's like, you know what? No, 2012, she's like, you know what? I think we should start the process of moving. And I was like, told you, like. But I feel like she knew it, because I feel like my mom's, she's made some decisions
Very intuitive.
Like even moving to California was all based on intuition. Like we were thinking of moving to like an Indian friendly place like New Jersey or something. And, like, and I was like, Mom, no. And she's like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna like take a nap, and it'll come
why
to
we
her.
moved to California is because Guruji had an intuition to move to California, and like the temples are pretty close by and everything.
So I feel like it was definitely Guruji kind of whispered into it here, like, hey, come here, like. So intuition is definitely, I feel like even as an artist as well, I feel like almost 100% of my assignments I've used intuition, even though I'm like a designer too, where everything needs to have a function and form. I still use intuition, because I feel like that's the best way to communicate when it comes to creating, when it comes to solving problems, because sometimes a definite answer doesn't satisfy people.
How do you know if it's intuition or your psychological ego clutter?
So there's definitely different voices, right? I mean, I can say it confidently.
Voices?
Yeah, I can say it confidently, because because I am an empath, and I am very sensitive to people, and I can sometimes see straight through them, and it's not fun sometimes. So when it comes to you definitely have like your subtle whispers, you feel calmer, you feel more sure of something. That is your intuition. If you feel restless, if you feel like a little heaviness, that is your ego, or that's your like mental chatter. So it's like you can definitely like sift between pure intuition or mental chatter. So that's a process to it.
Meditation does help because, if you want to ace those multiple choice questions, intuition does really help.
You just do what Guruji did and just find like a scrap of paper on the floor and go, yeah, this is going to help me. Finally.
I actually did that. I actually took a test. I'm not very good at math, and you guys have proof. I was like, you know what? I need to really pass this class, and I only studied like not that much, and I took a test solely based on intuition. I got like a 95, and I was just like, Guruji did it for me. Like it is. I was just having a ball.
Whoa. How do you do maths with intuition?
Guess the answer.
This is blowing my mind.
No, it's weird. Like I feel like when you look at the questions, you sometimes get like intuitive nudges, and you're like, okay, I should probably apply this formula. And like it's like you just become numb, and then you just let that voice just take over. Like that's what happened. It's very weird to explain though, but
yeah. I was listening to a podcast about 50 incarnations that have shaped India, present day India, by the BBC. And one of the people they were talking about was a mathematician called Ramanujan.
The movie is amazing, by the way.
Oh, there you go. So you guys, I hadn't known about him since recently, and he did lots of research at Cambridge University, and he's only got like one journal of stuff, and there's like all these crazy equations in it, and they all make sense, but he doesn't show his working out. So they've got the end products, and the podcaster was saying like the kind of like method he draws upon is like this. It's almost as if it's intuitive knowledge that he's got. He's not like scientists usually go down various paths and they fail, and then they show that this is not the path to go on. But there's no evidence of him doing that. You literally got very close to the end product of the equations, and lots of his equations are used like even today in like quantum computing and things like that. But scientists don't know how he's got to those beautiful equations.
I feel like oh, you go, Chris.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we're somewhat of a battery cell, and our brain matter is like the antenna, and when we meditate and we're working on ourselves, we're kind of fine tuning the power source. Let's say we're becoming more attuned with Guruji and with God, and we're electrifying our battery cell. We're literally just being able to pull from the ether the information. That is really what's happening from my understanding, right? So intuitive knowledge is, you kind of don't want your mind to be cluttered with all the theory and all this stuff too much, right? It's more just, when and if you need it, it might be then good to be able to pull out and pull into this reality if it's useful. So yeah, intuitive knowledge is probably the way forward, as I understand it. But yeah, that's probably because I have a gross distaste for academic study and things. So that's my get out there.
Don't say that, because we'll be discouraging Nik and Niva to study.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, stay in school. Yeah,
I'm going to graduate pretty soon anyway. I'm a creative, and I'm not that much of an academic too, but remember when Guruji alluded to the fact that he doesn't read much? He would like meditate and look at the library of the universe, and like take his quote unquote library card in meditation and swipe it and get the book and read, and he'll get his answers from there. And I think that's the method that we grew up with our family and stuff. Like even my mom, she was a valedictorian and stuff, and she herself told my sister and I that, don't be traditional, follow Guruji's teachings, and if Guruji says that you meditate and you find your answers, you do that. So yeah.
Come on.
Mike, you were saying.
I think sometimes, you know, the saying, if an idea is in the ether, like sometimes, like I think when the telephone was invented, there was actually 2 or 3 people who invented it at the same time.
Mhm.
Because, and then I also think artists often, they get their ideas for a melody out of their intuition. And math is like something that is so completely full of possibilities that if you don't have an idea of what to look for, you will never find anything in there. Otherwise, you could just write an AI and say, go look for stuff, and then see what comes out. They might even do that soon. But it's always useful to have this intuition. And I think most great inventions, they come partly, at least, from intuition, probably, right?
Hmm.
Tesla was big for that, I think, as well, wasn't he?
Who,
Nikola
sorry?
Tesla.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Tesla.
Oh,
He's big for
speaking
it.
of Nikola Tesla, I do have a picture of him. Like he walks.
Ah, there he
Nice.
is.
Oh.
Yeah, he walks beside. I have Guruji on one side and I have Tesla.
It's great.
Very nice. So let's talk about the next or the last line. I think it's relevant because of the scenes that appear. So the last line says, "And it became clear that the world was not what it appeared to be." And then we see women painting. I don't know the exact relevance of that, but let's discuss it. We see lots of women painting, and then there's a couple of pictures and paintings that we're presented with. But what do you think that line is referring to there, guys? Anyone come in?
I honestly I feel like it's definitely it's the paintings that are sort of the could you please repeat the line real quick?
So the line, we'll discuss the paintings in a second, but let's get to the line. The line is, "And it became clear that the world was not what it appeared to be."
Yeah, and that's actually very definitive because the painting is the answer to that line. Because if you look at like that's when I think abstract art started.
So we haven't discussed what painting yet. So Nick
Oh,
is talking about the last 2 scenes. So there's painting of, sorry, there's a picture or a video of ladies painting. There's like a class going on. Then there's a conventional painting of a boat, of a ship, a sailboat. And then there's the exact, well, not exact, but a very similar painting of that sailboat, but in a abstract art form, or a modern art form, you might call it. Go, Nick. What were you
yeah.
going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that the picture is actually a visual representation of that line because thankfully I took a modern art class last semester, so I actually have a little knowledge about why modern art started and how it's definitely because of what was going on around them. They wanted to put it into some visual expression, right? So when you look at that picture, I think I have it on my phone. I think Priyank has it as well. It's this picture, if you guys can see.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, so it's definitely it looks like a boat, but it's not a boat, but it's a lot of like pointy lines and soft colors, so it's definitely giving an illusion to like the flowness of travel. Even what does a boat really signify? What does it really mean? Well, like what does a boat signify? What do people feel when it comes to travel, or like the more abstract concepts, and putting it onto paper? It doesn't look like a boat, but it feels like a journey kind of. So that's basically what's happening with that was what was happening with science, with expression of art. It's definitely tapping between the known and unknown, because in the past it was very straightforward, definitive, and now it's turning more into very organic and explorative. So
Very good. Yeah, I think as you say, it refers back to what the previous line was about the science, and we will go back to Einstein and E is equal to mc squared, and part of what that is saying, that energy is the same as mass, and that's obviously revolutionary thinking, and yeah, that's a good link there, Nick. Anyone else?
Just to add on to that, I think to your point there, the Starry Night by Vincent van, I'm going to leave the surname pronunciation to somebody else. I think it's Go or Gulf, but maybe Mike can come in on that one. I guess that's a pretty good example of that, right? It's just this starry depiction of like what even is going on out there. But yeah, I love this. I'm more of a Last Supper kind of guy, if you ask me, rather than more modern abstract art. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's just like a time of exploration, a time of self-expression, and a time really when we're kind of moving away from the struggles of life. In the 19th century, think of the mass breakthrough of quality of living, and just the joy that would have been expressed at the time from the ability to express yourself, and people do that through painting and through all sorts of things, right? So it would have been a great time to kind of be alive, but at the same time we're so much better off now. But I mean, how much are we any more happy now? It's a question, really. I would probably say it's no, maybe, or even more. We talked to Varun Sunny, who appears in the documentary, and he attested to the fact that all this modern technology and everything else that comes with it really led us down the path of, polarization and isolation in many respects. So, when I see this, these thoughts kind of come to mind. I think it's absolutely fantastic, but we shouldn't really get too caught up in all these, let's say, derivatives of activity that we can, endlessly pursue. So that's where Guruji really does kind of keep bringing us back to God. Like, it's fine to, do your painting at the weekends, do your gardening at the weekends, do these things, but, take care of yourself, your family, make sure you've got an income and these sort of things, and don't get too carried away and chasing endless desires of expression.
Yeah, interesting. You should say that about other pursuits like painting and sketching, because I find sketching to be very, very meditative, and it's almost very related to like geometry in terms of your own geometry. I'll give you an example. Like my art teacher, when she was telling me we were just discussing this, Chris, just before this meeting. She's an SRF devotee as well. She was telling me like when you sketch, we are just doing pencil sketching. She was saying when you sketch, just forget what you're sketching, feel the paper, and just imagine you're laying a powder of lead just across the page, and you'll be surprised as to what comes out. And then I started doing that. It all sounds very abstract. And then she said the key thing at the end. She's like, and forget that time exists. Like, just do it as if there's no time. And then you, when you start to do it, you get into this zone, which is very, very similar to that place of like pure stillness that you would experience in meditation. And yeah, we can draw parallels there, but it's I think regardless of the pursuit, where your focus and your attention is, I think you can spiritualize a lot of your activities and actions. And talking about paintings and modern art, this is a painting by my sister.
It's Ganesh.
Nik and Niva will no doubt recognize it. Yeah, so that is Ganesh or Ganapati. And I was just thinking about this. So this is like a modern art representation. So she got me this on Raksha Bandhan last year, or she painted the card for me, and I kept it and framed it. And I was thinking, Ganesh is like he's known as the elephant-headed deity or god of the god that removes obstacles in one's life, and that god, whether he was created or not, or that image was created or not, is a very abstract form, isn't it, of a representation of divinity, like taking two seemingly different species, human or divine and elephant, and then putting them together. And there's a very beautiful story as to how that actually manifests and happens. So yeah, in India, I suppose modern art was probably there before any other civilization. Before that, it was what you see is what you draw, both in terms of outlook and in terms of art, conventional art, I suppose. Mike, any reflections?
I mean, I want to agree with you guys that like art and those images, especially modern art, has so much to do with expression of what's inside. And that when they said like this was a new time, a new freedom, people were not allowed to do this before, and now they're doing it. And with it comes a new peace of mind and a new feeling of psychological health. I find, and that's something that they kind of alluded to a little bit. I mean, I just want to spoil a little bit the next minute, because the next picture you see is Sigmund Freud. So I feel like this is kind of a confirmation of that a little bit. Yeah.
Very good. And that pretty much draws our minute to a close, doesn't it? So does anyone have any reflections about the whole minute? I think it was quite a good action-packed minute, even though it was about one topic, which is a very complex topic of Guruji taking his first tentative steps into Boston Harbor.
I just wondered, did Guruji know when he was coming into the age of mass consumerism, what would actually take place, which is unfortunately quite tragic, isn't it, in the US, where consumerism went to the nth degree, and the disease, bodily disease, mind and emotion, the disease that's really taken hold. It's a pandemic essentially of people with diabetes, heart attack, cancers, and so on and so forth. And, people stuffing their faces with hot dogs, and I think from memory, you didn't see too many obese people. You didn't see people in that footage that we saw that were, you would be concerned for their health. But you go around the United States and other places in the world today, and you kind of see, wow, like there's, people are really trying to find fulfillment in life in all the wrong places. And my heart bleeds for them in that sense. We've probably all got our vices in some way. But this is quite an obvious one, really. So I just wondered, did he see, the kind of future unfolding in a sense, and they learn how to behave quote that Sri Yukteswar passed on to him as a teaching. I just wonder, could Guruji kind of foresee all these things and kind of pray for the people and really hope for the best? But it's out of his control. Yeah,
I think probably Babaji saw some of this darkness coming, and that's why he sent to spread the teachings, right? Spread the light, and the darkness will be dispelled, but it takes some time, I guess.
The teachings are so relevant. I mean, if you look at the teachings, even though he talks about like telephones or radios, we still have some variants of that right now. I mean, now it's just more high tech and more Mayavi almost. Like we have virtual reality, we have headsets. That's like very intoxicating. And to be around. So I feel like definitely there's a major timelessness when it comes to the essence of SRF and Yogananda and what he wants to say, because ultimately humans are not going to go anywhere. We're only going to evolve into more complex humans with more complex problems, and there's definitely like a nice baseline for us to get back to because of what's been presented to us. And I feel like we're very blessed to have been awakened, to know that we are deluded, we are essentially like sick in the mind, like in our mental body. We're essentially sick. We're essentially sick in terms of how we perceive. Excuse me, I'm so sorry about that.
That's all right. I like where she was going with that though, because there is a lot to be said for the healing that needs to be taking place, and incredibly grateful that you go through the suffering of the world, and you eventually get your answers if you really demand. But
I love she's talking about mental like sickness, and then crazy beeps and crazy noise starts happening in the room.
Yeah, I think we're getting like a little check done. I just thought it was today, but I feel like, again, going back to the mental sickness part, like we all have some sort of attachment in a way. I think dopamine addiction is a big thing, like because I know I can attest to that. I have it. I have dopamine addiction because it's, I mean, I don't like being upfront about it, but I have to, because we're talking about how Guruji came to America, and he's talking about all these futuristic ideas, right? And evolution is great, but there's definitely a downside to it. It is so fascinating. You cannot help but get hooked. I even have a book. It's called Hooked, by how people make these products and how people actually get addicted. And like right now, I'm currently working on it. I'm going back to the teachings. I'm limiting on my screen time. So there's definitely evolution and the side effects of it, you know. So
Great.
If you think of like the next 2,000 years and where technology is going to be, it's going to be like magic to us, right? And you'll be able to seemingly manifest realities before your very eyes, and you know, the virtual reality and the immersive experiences that you'll have in, let's say, alternate realities within this physical kind of world of Maya. Like, you'll be able to manifest things so much quicker than today. So really, we need the spiritual wealth and the anchoring to reality and to the ultimate, say, truth of what nature is. So yeah, like 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, your reach was so much shorter. You know, each and every one of us can reach so many more people these days, so we have to be more responsible. So yeah, these are just gradual barriers that we need to break through to be able to anchor ourselves in more kind of balance with material and spiritual wealth, because they're both coming. It's just can we match the material innovation with the spiritual innovation, really.
Niva, any last reflections?
Well, I just wanted to say that this whole meeting we had today, it was very much needed, because of late I've been thinking a lot about like science and spirituality and my love for both, and I feel like this minute was kind of God sent in a way, and it was so amazing because we got to talk about so many topics that were needed to be discussed. And talking about Chris's remark about manifestations, I don't know if you guys know what's going on with the trends in Gen Z, because I'm a Gen Z and so is she. And a lot of Gen Zs right now are looking at manifesting and tapping into your true power to make your own reality come true and stuff. And this is just the very beginning of a new spiritual revolution that's happening in the current generation of kids and teenagers alike. So SRF, we're in for something good these coming years.
Very good. And we're especially thankful for Nik and Niva joining us today. Obviously, it was very beautiful. Hopefully, you guys can join us again one day.
yeah, definitely.
That'll be swell, yeah.
I think now that I've broken the ice, we might get you in individually, so we can have more of one of you rather than some of both of you. which I'm sure you guys suffer as
Always
twins.
come in twos.
No, I feel like
You're
Niva
always
have her own way of expressing herself. I feel like whenever we're together, we have to like water down some aspects
Yeah.
of ourselves so we can like we don't overshadow one another. So we're just like, okay, we're just gonna.
I want to give her justice, you know.
And we should, Mike and Chris, we should especially thank Niva because she usually sleeps in the day and stays awake in the night. So she's had to reverse her schedule just so she could come on this podcast. So well done, Niva. Good shout. You can't tell that you've done that. I expect bags under your eyes and stuff like that, and that hasn't happened. She's speechless. On that note, thank you very much for joining us. Jai Guru. See you next time.